Well, first of all, I want to express my deepest thoughts and well wishes for her husband, Abraham, as he battles this rare form of cancer. I mean, that's I can't imagine the stress and the strain that's putting on them. And I think her being willing and wanting to step aside so that she can spend more time with them, I think that's commendable. I've noted, as you have, many concerns about her leadership and, frankly, some of her role in various intelligence assessments. And so I think what I hope would happen is that the president will find a replacement that is willing to speak truth to power, willing to keep the politics out of intelligence, and to support the great professionals in the intelligence community. The DNI, unlike the CIA director, that individual owns basically the responsibilities for all the intelligence communities combined, and integrating their tools, making sure that their analysis is done well, and that it's presented to national leaders in a cohesive, coherent way. And so this is a very, very big job, and I do hope that the president finds somebody that can again follow that more traditional model in terms of leadership, because it's critical. I'll say one other thing, though, and that is that the intel professionals that work under the DNI and all those agencies, the career professionals, they're superb. And they don't worry about the politics. And they really do try to do a good job in doing all the necessary rigorous analysis that needs to be done so that the political leadership of the country can make the best decisions they can. And the acting now, Mr. Lucas, Aaron Lucas, is that kind of professional. He is a careerist. He's 20 years in the CIA. He's been involved in lots of critical national security issues over his career. And I think that whether he gets the job or not, of course, is up to President Trump. But I hope that at least in the interim, that he'll have the support of the administration as he tries to lead these agencies.
You know, I think we all join you, Kirby, in sending our thoughts and prayers and well wishes to Tulsi Gabbard and her husband. I would not, I said this earlier when we found out, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. And two things can be true. You could disagree with Tulsi Gabbard and the role that she has carried out as the DNI, of which I do, but also have empathy and sympathy. I know sometimes the president doesn't have it, but we do have it right here. Okay, let's talk about, because I take your point about the career folks, and you know, I having worked at the White House, the career people are very important. They keep you on the straight and narrow when the political appointees want to go left, and we're really supposed to be going right. It's the career folks that readjust. I am concerned about the upcoming election because in the lead up to this election, if we remember, ballots were seized in Fulton County and other places across this country. I do believe that HSI went and also got ballots that were voluntarily turned over in Puerto Rico. These are all from the 2020 election. We've heard a lot about the potential of foreign interference, of claiming that Venezuela or other countries interfered in the 2020 election, going way back in the Wayback Machine, and what kind of claims that could be made about this upcoming election. The DNI has an important role to play in that. If the CIA folks won't stand up to the president, do you think that the DNI could make a difference over the next 6 months for the kind of conversation that's being had around this election?
Oh, yes, ma'am. 1,000%. Couldn't agree more with you. Again, remember the DNI is the integrator. That individual doesn't own a specific agency, but they're responsible for integrating the efforts of 18 different intelligence communities and presenting to the president of the United States his or her best conclusions about what that intelligence shows. And there's no question that as we head to another election here in the midterms, and then, of course, in 28, that there's going to be foreign governments. We can name them. You named a couple yourself. We know who they are, who are going to want to interfere and try to affect the outcome of our elections here at home. And so it's absolutely vital that, number one, the intelligence community has the leash to go get the information and analyze it and present it in an honest way. And that, number two, that the DNI, whoever that person is, also has the authority, the credibility inside the intelligence community, but inside the Oval Office, to go to the president of the United States and say, Mr. President, this is what we're seeing in the international picture. These are the threats to election security and safety, and we want you to take it seriously. So whoever this person is, whoever comes in, it is a critical position, particularly as you rightly pointed out, Simone, as we head into elections, that this person has, again, that credibility and that authority and is not afraid to speak truth to power, whatever that truth is, whatever the intelligence says, wherever the direction's pointing, that person can go into the Oval Office and be honest about it.
So with all due respect to you and to my colleague who also served in the White House.
Whenever he says this, it's like
the lead up.
You know, it's like the wind up to like pow.
I'm waiting for the blow. Go ahead, lay it on me, Michael.
No. First thing, I'm loving your tie. First thing, that's the first thing. Just get that off the table. But John, Simone, Luke, I think Luke is probably going to be landing a little bit more where I am on this one. There is nothing about Donald Trump that would ever indicate and has not indicated that he would pick someone as you've just described. Because that individual who has the power to look him in the eye and tell him no is not in his orbit. And that is the fundamental problem that we face in national intelligence, is that he wants someone very much like he wants at the Fed, very much like he wants on Capitol Hill with members of his party in Congress, very much like he wants on the Supreme Court, very much like he wants with the billionaires who hang around him, starting with Elon Musk. Kiss the bottom of my foot, and then I'll throw you a bone, and then if you chew the bone the wrong way and I don't like it, you're gone. So that's what he does. And so my question then, I'm living in the world, not that you're not, I don't want to infer that you're not, but I'm living in the world where what you just described does not happen. There is no John Kirby to put in that job, all right? So what does that and will it say to our allies who are going to be looking over the next few months as we're now engaged in Iran? We know what's about to happen in Ukraine and Russia and what they're doing there as we head into the summer. Europe, the European continent's on edge. We don't have that person who can actually deliver the kind of intelligence that reflects exactly what's happening in the world.
Should he choose somebody like as you described, Michael, and I recognize where you're coming from and the proclivities here. Should that be the avenue he takes? What it will do is reinforce for our allies that the United States is not interested in being a real global leader, that we're not willing to assume the mantle of responsibility that so many other countries depend on us to exert and to influence, and it will just further dissolve American leadership on the world stage. It's already been dissolving. I think it'll just further that forward. I was in Europe a few weeks ago, and I had a chance to meet with some senior NATO officers and some defense officials from a Western European country. And I can tell you that what struck me as I came away from these meetings is they're already walking away from us, Michael. They're already counting on the United States not being there. And as they think about NATO and what the alliance needs to look like, what missions it needs to conduct, what capabilities it needs to possess, they're already thinking past the United States. And that's really sad. I mean, I grew up doing, conducting NATO operations since I was a young officer, and to see that really bothered me. But I think they're already walking away because they know we are walking away from our responsibilities. And so should he not want a DNI to be an honest broker, a tough character, and willing to lay it on the line and be honest with him, to lead the intelligence community who really wants to be led in a non-political way, he's doing himself a disservice. He'll do the country a disservice. And quite frankly, he'll just, again, reinforce for our allies that the United States is not a country that they can depend on anymore. And I never thought I'd say that, but I think that's where things are heading.